Usually you get to hear from me about what the agenda is for the day, but I figured to help you meet one of our newest team members, I would let Kara introduce what we're going through today.
Thank you, Peter. I'm very excited to be here today. With it being May the 4th, I thought it would be fun to have GPT-4 write a Star Wars script introduction for me to share. Here is what it created. The camera pans over a crowd of individuals gathered in a spacious hall, adorned with symbols of the Rebel Alliance. A hush falls over the room as a figure steps forward onto the stage, bathed in the glow of a massive holographic display. Good morning, Rebels, the figure booms, his voice echoing through the hall. Thank you for joining us on this most important day, May the 4th. The crowd erupts in cheers and applause, brandishing banners and flags emblazoned with the Alliance's emblem. Today, you will hear from Chris Dowdy, Ken Flannery, Zach DeBoer, and Mike Mann. The figure continues, gesturing towards a group of 4 individuals standing at the edge of the stage. They will provide updates on Gentian Financial, share what we've been hearing from you and seeing in the markets, discuss planning topics, and share insights from this year's Abundance 360 Summit. The 4 individuals step forward, their faces solemn but determined. They nod in acknowledgement of the crowd's applause, then turn towards the holographic display as it flickers to life. Thank you for having us, Chris says, his voice echoing through the hall. We're honored to be here, and we're excited to share our insights with you. Ken steps forward, his eyes gleaming with passion. We've been hard at work, analyzing the markets, and gathering feedback from all of you. We believe that we're on the right track, and we're committed to seeing this through to the end. Zach nods in agreement, his gaze sweeping over the assembled crowd. We know that we face many challenges, but with your support and guidance, we are confident that we can overcome anything that comes our way. Mike steps forward, his eyes alight with energy. And with the insights we've gained from this year's Abundance 360 Summit, we're even more prepared to take on the challenges ahead. The crowd erupts into cheers and applause, waving their banners and flags as the holographic display flickers with data and charts. The rebels stand united, ready to face whatever the galaxy may throw their way. Thank you again. It's been a pleasure being a part of your day. Enjoy the forum.
So obviously, there's still a little bit of a learning curve since she can't pronounce Dodie or Gentian, but we'll get there. But if anyone's curious, all I did to create that was I put in the guys' 4 names, our 4 topics for today, and said write an introduction in Star Wars script, and it created that entire script that we used for the video. Yep, so very, very simple. But, so we will be going through a Gentian update. We will be talking about questions we're hearing from you and other clients. We'll talk about financial planning topics, and then Chris will dive into what he learned at the Abundance 360 Summit last month. But in all seriousness, hopefully most of you got to meet Michael Birschbach on your way in. He is actually our newest team member. He joined us in February, so he's a few months in. Yes, give him a round of applause. So if you didn't get a chance to say hi, please do so on the way out. We're very happy and fortunate to have him as part of the team. One last item is, I think on most tables, if not all, there's a QR code. That will take you to a survey for today. If you have time at the end to fill it out, give us feedback on topics you enjoyed, things we did well, areas we can improve. We really appreciate the feedback. We'll also try and put the QR code up at the end of the presentation as well. All you have to do is open the camera app on your smartphone. If you hover it over the QR code, it will pop up a link. You click on that link, it will take you to the website with the survey. So that's all for me. So please join me in welcoming Chris, Ken, Zach, and Mike.
Thank you, Peter, and that's it. Good night. Hope you had a good day. Chat.gpt will be handling any questions, so feel free to ask it on the way. I'm just kidding. It's kind of fun. So thank you for coming out today. Your time is the most precious resource we have. You'll see we've added a new team member. There'll be a new announcement coming up as well soon. But we do this because we want to make sure we serve you well. That's really the key with it. So some of what we'll talk about today is really going to be markets, things you have questions on, but we want to make it interactive. There's going to be things that are super important to you and questions you want to ask. Feel free to do so. If you need to take a nap during the program, feel free to set your head on the table kindly. We'll wake you up when there's something important. So just wanted to make sure that was fine as well. But what you'll see here, you know myself, and what we always start with is going big. So I want to begin in gratitude. Take the next 2 minutes to go back over the last 90 days and talk about something that you're grateful for. So why don't you take a minute, grab your pens and papers. They're right in the middle of your table. If you can't find them, they're right in front of you. Feel free, go ahead and write down. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. All right, thank you very much. So what we'll do now is share. My gratitude was this weekend we got to spend some time in Minneapolis. Anybody here know where that is? It's a frustrating 5.5-hour drive. Not quite far enough to fly, a little farther than you want to drive. That's what I call Minneapolis, right? But it was a wonderful time as I got to share with my family. My wife and both of my daughters were playing volleyball there. I also chose to coach this year and had a wonderful relationship with just a great team of people, which was fun. So we had a wonderful time, shared some wonderful laughter, some tears at the end for it being the end of the season, but it was just a wonderful 4 or 5 months. And it became a family event, which was quite fun. A bunch of friends were there as well, and I celebrate that. It was a great community, and that's what we need more of. So with myself, Ken, how about you?
Thank you. So I was in Washington, D.C. at a 2-day riveting tax seminar, by the way. But most importantly, after that was done, we were flying back from D.C. back to Milwaukee, and I happened to be on an honor flight. And so I got lucky enough to be there on an honor flight. I was not a chaperone by any means. I've heard some of you talk about honor flights. We've actually written some letters for some of you. I've seen the letters, right? But to be part of something like that, to experience the emotional highs and lows of that flight and what was going on, to hear all the roll call going on before and on and after, to walk out after you're done, to see all of the people in uniform, to support the true American heroes. It was absolutely emotional and riveting, and I think it's an amazing experience. So if you ever have a chance to get on an honor flight, I was lucky to be on one, by the way, but it was fantastic. So yes, Dave.
Seen the movie?
I've not seen the movie, no.
The movie is absolutely
Is the movie even? Yeah, the movie's great. So there's a movie about the honor flight as well. So, but if we can give a round of applause for the true American heroes, I think that'd be fantastic.
I know Tom was on one lately as well. Anyone else been on an honor flight? Excellent. Thank you. It's truly an honor. It's phenomenal. I know the emotions are fantastic with it as well. How about Zach?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. As always, so many things to be grateful for. Grateful for a beautiful day here at Blue Mountain. Finally, some sun in the morning. But also, I celebrated a golden birthday last weekend. So thank you all for the birthday wishes. And it was just extremely evident of how overwhelmingly blessed I am with amazing people in my life, by the family in my life, which is, my parents and family, but also you guys and the Gentian team I consider my family as well. So just unbelievably grateful for last weekend and just the amazing people in my life.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate that. How about Michael?
Thanks, Chris. So I'm truly grateful for all of you. It's been really something reflecting on the last 4.5 years since I joined Gentian and where I was to where I'm standing right now. And a lot of that is in part with your trust and everything that you guys have done for me. And I'm looking forward to continuing to reciprocating that in the future. And I do have to say I'm grateful for the team. We're ever growing, and specifically our new hire, Michael. I'm extremely grateful that you go by Michael, and I can continue to go by Mike. So, so it's going to be great. We're looking forward to working with each other, and we're looking forward to the future.
All right, fabulous. Thank you. How about anyone in the audience? Well, share a few things that you're grateful for, please. I know a lot of you aren't shy. Yes, Rick.
We just had our 10th grandson.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
Just a week ago.
Wow.
Awesome.
10th. That's awesome. Super cool.
Congratulations.
Very, very good.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is our 100 grand, but now it feels like 90 grand bar. It's called the inflation bar. Yeah. So just to show you what it is, we're giving away about probably 85 grand right now, I think, with inflation over the past few years. So we'll be handing out some more 85 grand bars if you participate. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Who else? Yes.
We had a safe trip back from Florida, driving again.
Awesome.
And then we came back early to spend a week with our
Oh, that's awesome. Came home to watch your grandson. That's awesome. Super cool. I will give you 85 grand for that. It's worth
absolutely
it.
it is.
Yes, I saw another hand over here. Yes, please, Ken.
Very thankful for the day that we met Chris and his team.
Thank you.
And no applause to
Yeah.
He's not a plant, but we're going to give him, you might want to give him like, 180 grand or so because
well, also for our 5th great grandchild on the way.
5th great grandchild. That is awesome.
And I'll end it there.
There's a lot more. The list can keep going. That's awesome. So yesterday was really cool because Zach's dad was in Appleton, and they had and he'll tell. I don't know if you've heard Zach's dad tell stories before. He's a great storyteller, and he's got plenty,
There's
right?
a lot of them.
But what's interesting yesterday is Zach had a 100-mile run, just like everybody, somewhere in Illinois, and it was a 3.5-hour drive there. So they decided they'd talk about what they're grateful for. They got 3.5 hours. They got to their destination. They weren't done. So
I think I truly had about 10 minutes of that 3 hours. The other 2 hours and 50 minutes was my dad. But,
if you meet his dad, you'll know why. He's awesome. He's awesome. Thank you as well. Anyone else? Please, Dave. Yeah.
Dedication of the new College of Business at Marquette University yesterday.
Oh, awesome. Super cool. Did they call it the Dave Krill Academy? Just a conference room. Okay, good. That's outstanding. Very cool. Very cool. Anyone else? Good. Thank you. I really enjoy the Go Big part of this. It's super important to our overall picture, but we want to start this really with the questions we're hearing from you. This is designed to be a program to inform you, not for us to stand up here and espouse what we know, because we want to espouse and answer questions you have. So a lot of what we're hearing from you is, what's happening in the market? Should I be worried about my bank? What should I do with my cash reserves? Should I be worried about cyber threats? Should I explore senior living? And is Gentian accepting new clients? No. It worked better yesterday. Yes, we are. We're accepting your introductions, so yes. I just think it's funny to go, no. So some of the keys we'll look at today is what we're doing behind the scenes as well. And this is where I'll turn over to Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to keep it brief. We're doing so much behind the scenes that I think I actually caused our presentation to go a little bit too long yesterday. So we're always doing the constant, consistent review of portfolio holdings, the planning items, the different things that are out there, the alternatives, the different ideas that we can bring to you whenever we have those individual planning meetings. That is always going on, and it's always spread out amongst the entire team. Another thing I want to bring up is how often we meet as a team. Every Monday morning, we have an hour and a half. Yeah, supposed to be. Usually goes a little bit longer. And then also the development day that we do that we recently renamed to Learning to Serve You Better Day. And that's once a month. And this is where we bring all those ideas together. We have that camaraderie. We all learn from each other and continue to grow as a team. And that's the investment that we're going to continue to make in you. Beyond that, we're going to continue to invest in our own education, continue to look at how we can always continue to learn to serve you better. So an example of how we're doing that, meeting with industry leaders, and as I said before, we'll expand a little bit more about some of the education and then our centers of influence as well.
Mm-hmm. If you guys have been on any of our bi-weekly webinars, we talk a lot about what our centers of influence are bringing to us as far as information. We know that the overall financial plan isn't just markets, isn't just even conversions of those different tax strategies. You may be going through lending scenarios. You may need information on the estate planning side of things, potentially information from a tax accountant. So we're constantly behind the scenes interviewing these people to make sure that if scenarios arise for you guys, we have somebody that we trust that we can introduce you to serve you better as well. And some of those even go beyond where we're looking at something that Chris will bring up later today. Where should we potentially look at living? When do we make those decisions? So we've been trying to find industry experts that specialize in helping people 55 and older move out of their home, right? Whether it's downsizing, how to go through potentially auctioning things or to get rid of things or to look at those. So we're constantly interviewing people behind the scenes to serve you better as well.
And expanding upon that continuing education, last week was actually a huge week for it. Ken being at Ed Slot, Zach going down to strategic coach, the rest of the team, Peter, Ashley, Chris, Elevate, which is Raymond James' own conference of bringing industry leaders and being able to collaborate directly with them and figure out how we can leverage them to continue to have that great relationship. Next week, APFA, which is the Academy of Preferred Financial Advisors. Zach will be attending that, and we'll continue to bring back those ideas. So these are all investments that we make in ourselves to continue to learn, grow as a team, and learn to serve you better. That's going to be a big theme.
Thank you, Mike. Now what we're all here for, markets, right? Right? So who here was prepared for coming through a 3-year pandemic that we thought might have killed everyone at some point? We didn't really know. A 1 month, 34% decline in the market, only to 4 months later go back to a new high. If you go back over the last 5 years, 3 bear markets in 5 years. Normally 1 happens every 5 years. Let's talk about expanding the M1 money supply or M2 money supply 40%, creating something called, anybody heard of inflation or experienced that? We had a very hawkish Fed who reduced rates really quickly, quicker than they've ever done, causing bonds to fall to a point they've never fallen to before. And at the same point in time, I actually have this all written down because there's so much, I almost can't remember it all. How about Russia and China? Anybody heard of them? Lately, yeah. We've also got issues going on with Iran going on. We can keep going. Now it's banking. You've heard crashes of cryptocurrency and others as well. So who thinks it's been a fairly volatile time? Yeah? Welcome to a world of acceleration. What I'd like to do today is to get you comfortable living and understanding that we're living in a world of acceleration. Markets are no different. Let me ask you one question. Do you guys know any humans? Do you know any humans that are irrational? Do things you're like, what was that? Why would they make that decision, right? Well, let me tell you, the market is a barometer of those decisions made every single day. So if it's a market of irrationality, and if it's a thermometer of irrationality, that's what the market is. So you're going to run through massive highs, and people go, oh my gosh, it is never coming down. This is the best thing since sliced bread, right? And then you're going to get those people as well when it gets rough. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. I got to be out of this thing. I can't be in it when it goes down. But strangely enough, to be in the market over long term is the only way you're going to get the long-term return. You miss 5 days out of 50 years, and you miss a very large percentage of the return of a market. But what's very important about this, we got a lot of people out there who we're getting access to more information, right? So what do we think that means? I've got access to more information, so I should what? Do something about it. That's right. Nobody said that. I just wanted to. We feel that I just had to say it myself. We get this idea that we should do something about it, right? When oftentimes we should stay exactly where we are, knowing that the market's irrational. So in your lives, have you guys had highs and lows? Yes, right? The market's no different. It's cyclical. We have to get used to that. What I want to prepare you for today is the fact that, listen, there may be a 50% decline this year. Those are temporary and necessary. Who here has been with me for more than 15 years? I see many hands go up. Thank you, by the way. We've been through the 2000. We've been through the 09. We've been through the 20% correction now and the 3 in the last few years. And guess what? How are we? We're fine. But we have to get through them. Zach's going to give you some fantastic market facts. It shows you, even though it's volatile, volatility equals risk. Risk equals what? Return. And that's what we're all in it for. But it's not guessing when to be in it. I can tell you when to be in it the whole time. That's where you'll get the return. So what I want to explain about markets, they are human nature. They really are something that we got to be careful with. And markets are really derivative of companies. Companies are what we're investing in mainly because companies beat, the returns beat inflation, and they beat the money that we have to actually take out in income. The only category that does. So what's super important about that right now is if we're in those, and we have to stick through with stocks, we usually call them stocks, I should say, I'm flipping the name to something called great companies. Great companies make great decisions. For instance, did you guys realize something that just happened? In San Francisco, it's the base for Whole Foods. Guess what they did? It's their flagship store, the one they started in. They closed it. Why? They made a decision that it was no longer a good idea for them to remain in San Francisco. Guess what REI did? It's based in Portland. They left Portland. They decided it wasn't a good idea. Anybody hear about Walmart's in Chicago? So Walmart's in Chicago because their thing, it's not a great place for them to be right now for whatever reasons. So great companies make great decisions. And if they don't, they're replaced by somebody else. So we've got both managers and great companies. And if you look at this over history, the value of these companies has a steady upward move. And what is different is humans. Humans are volatile. Humans, we're the ones. It's our very own irrationality that causes markets to go up and down. We can blame everyone else, but look within first. So I wanted to give that explanation of markets because what's going on here, there's all sorts of things we can point and blame. We can point and blame, right? But if you're in it long term, historically you get the return. You got to be careful of doing something silly when things are too good or too bad. That's a simplified version. That's something I can tell your grandkids.
Well, there's not much to say about the markets after that. That was pretty good. So there it is. So I want you guys to close your eyes for a second. Now this is not, don't fall asleep, but close your eyes for a second. I'm gonna read a few lines. Close your eyes, everybody. You're cheating. I see you. I have my eyes open. They are swift and visceral. They come without warning. Their length of stay is unknown. They're not pleasant when they're around. They leave scars on those who react poorly. What comes to mind when I read that out? Besides my in-laws.
Rick said in-laws.
So I know some of you keep tallies on the jokes we tell, so here's maybe the first one. Or I think, what's the difference between in-laws and outlaws? Outlaws are wanted. So there you go. So, all right, so that's marker corrections there for you. But in all seriousness, this is a very, I know we kind of joke about this topic because a lot of you have been with us for a long time, right? You've been through what Chris just mentioned. But for those of you that are in a room that are newly retired within the last year and a half, 2 years, this is a tough time. This is a very tough time because you're wondering, you just left the best paying job you had in your whole entire life, only to watch your savings temporarily drop right now. And we have to live on those savings. It's a very serious time right now. So I'll call those the newbies in the room, right? Some of you have been around for a while. If you're talking to somebody that's been newly retired, have these conversations with them because you've been through this. You can tell them how you were feeling at the time and what it looks like now. Because this is a very serious moment for the people that are retired in the last couple of years. Because this isn't something we've experienced for over 12 years as far as a market downturn, right? So this is a very serious point in time right now. The annual end of the world, 2019, 2020, 2021, some of the best years we've seen since the 90s. 2022, what happened in 2020, last year, what happened? Markets went down, right? One of the worst calendar years since the 70s. Again, you own some of the most iconic companies in the world, most profitable, most innovative. Stick to that plan because we know that it pays off.
Something really interesting on markets really quick. 4 companies actually accounted for 60% of the return this year as well. So 7% to start the year, 4 companies accounted for 60% of that. So up markets, and those were Meta, NVIDIA, or Meta or Facebook, NVIDIA, Microsoft, and Apple. So pretty incredible there. The start to the year accounted from 4 companies, and a lot of companies are still yet to do better. So great start. Don't want to go too far in detail in the next slide, but it's really just to show how bonds had a tough year as well. When interest rates rise, bond prices fall, and bonds are really there to give us that stability over time to kind of weather the storms of the markets when they come. Last year, that wasn't the case. An intermediate bond fund that's normally maybe up 5%, maybe down 5%, that's really the variability between it. This last year, potentially down 12 to 20%. The nice thing is that there's different strategies within fixed income, and we had one that actually did better when rates rise. So instead of 12 to 15%, it was really only 2 to 4. So you guys maybe would have seen that change in early December. Mike and Ryan worked on that the entire year, working with different managers within that strategy, and we had made a change at the end of the year with how fast the Fed raised the rates. We didn't want to be in that fund that only does good when rates rise. So last year was a tough year just because bonds didn't give us that protection as well. That's why we have potentially a sleeve of alternatives in there, which actually was up 30% last year too.
Thank you, yeah. So if you look at this, since 1848, bonds haven't been this poor. That's quite a while. Who was here alive in 1848? Who's alive now? So my question, yeah, exactly, you heard that. Thank you, by the way, I appreciate that. So the question that I have for you as well, if this was done on a podcast recently, a really high-end financial podcast, but they asked a question. Would you rather outperform the market when it's down or when it's up? Guess what the answers were? 2/3 would rather outperform the market when it's down. They don't want to be down as much. Now, if you think about that and play it forward, that also means you're going to give up the return of the up markets, which are way longer than the temporary but necessary down markets. So if you look at that, it's kind of an interesting thing. We probably should be flipped. But remember, it's human nature that's involved here. Human nature is very important to know. And you want to know why? We're all here because of human nature. Make sense? On the savannas of Africa, the pioneers, the outgoing person, when the grass rustled, went over, well, what is it? What is it? And they got eaten by a lion. And all of your relatives ran the other direction, scared. Those are why we are here. It's the careful people. So that's in our DNA, right? So taking a look at that, super important to understand, why does this fear grip us so much? The good news about you is that it doesn't. If it does, you don't let us know anymore. How about that? So thank you, though. Feel free to do so. Thanks, Zach.
So who's heard the word inflation? So we do want to continue to talk about inflation. It is still here. It will always be here. But what we're starting to experience is a little bit less of the inflation that we had last year. Now, specifically, this slide talks about interest rates and inflation. And interest rates chase inflation. And why is that? Well, because interest rates, as they rise, it's a tool to bring down the cost of what things are. You know, there isn't so much money supply. You can't really buy as much as you did previously. But with inflation comes the dollar being worth less than it, not worthless, worth less than it was yesterday.
That's a whole nother story.
So the dollar's worth less than it was yesterday, right? So your money yesterday could buy more than it could today. That being said, there's the opportunity for interest in treasuries, other safe investments, things like that, that goes up. But if you're getting 3% in a treasury, closer to 4% now, but with inflation, if that's 4.2% as it was with the last CPI print, are you actually keeping up with it? So that's why we always talk about stocks being the long term, the only thing that's outperformed inflation since the beginning. Even with a down year last year, historically since 1926, stocks are still right about 10% per year as an annual average, right? It's a bumpy road to get there. But continuing to speak on inflation, we do want to talk about the Federal Reserve a little bit and what their decisions may be going forward. And we do see them being a little bit more dovish. Last year I talked a little bit about them being hawkish. A hawkish Fed is looking to make a change. They're looking to make a difference. They're trying to fix something. A dovish Fed kind of takes a step back. You know, the raises might not be quite as much as they were. They're going to wait and see what happens. They're going to let things play out. And I've learned this about doves recently because our new live camera that we have at the office, the morning doves, when they come in, they sit at the feeder. They don't go anywhere. They sit there, they just take up all the bandwidth, and then I have 15 pictures to go through to share with Chris. So.
That is our big new announcement at Gentian. We have a bird cam. When a bird lands on the feeder, it takes a picture, whatever the expression is. It's fun. It's called, what is it called? Bird-o-matic.
Bird Buddy.
It's Bird Buddy, yeah. I know, I'm just kidding. So, Zach has spent most of his time over the last 3 weeks with the Bird Buddy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. On his own time. On his own time. Thank you.
I want to belabor the point too far, but this one is in a lot of your review packets as well, but it's just a phenomenal reminder of how long do bull markets traditionally last, how long do bear markets or temporarily down markets generally last. Represented by the blue on your screen here from 1942, the end of the Great Depression, till today. The blue is the bull markets, the underneath the line, the yellow, they're represented by bear markets. Bull markets on average last 4.5 years with a cumulative return of 150%, whereas the bear markets generally last about 11 months with a cumulative downturn of 32%. So it's not detrimental to be part of the, on average, the 11 months and the temporarily down 32, but it is detrimental to miss the 4.5 years and the 150% return potential upside as well.
Thank you. I used to call this the Marquette chart until Jimmy Butler beat us in the playoffs. Now it's the bull and bear chart.
And this next one as well, just on average, a 20% correction happens every 5.5 years, roughly 5 years. We've had 3, as Chris mentioned, in the last 5 at the end of 2018, 19.8% correction. That's pretty darn close to 20, right? And then we had COVID, the 34% market correction in March of 2020. And then we had last year as well. What is unbelievably interesting is that starting in September, before those 3 downturns, the average return of the S&P 500 since then till today, yesterday actually, was 9.3%. So amazing to have 3 bear markets during a 5-year time span and still have a 9.3% return during that time as well.
I agree. Good perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, to sum all this up here, to kind of put this one to bed here, is the idea of owning stocks versus bonds. Very, very kind of a simplistic way to look at it. You've heard us talk about the 4% rule before, so you can take a look at your bucket of money. You can spend 4% of that per year and not have to worry about running out of money. What we notice here on the chart, what you can't see, that stocks can do anything on a 1-year basis. We know that. Over a 20-year period, retirement, long journey, 20-year, 30-year, 40-year retirement, we know that over the worst 20-year period, stocks have done a positive 6% per year for those 20 years. That means your money doubled, okay? That's 6%. Worst case, our bonds is a 1% rate of return for 20 years, okay? So if we're taking out 4%, but we're getting 6, are we okay? We're okay. If we're taking out 4 and we're getting 1, are we in trouble? We're in trouble. This is why we own a good portion of great companies in your portfolio, is to make sure we keep up with what you want to spend and the things that you enjoy doing.
Yeah, without a doubt. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. Okay, then some levity. So what is the shortest month of the year? February? It's May because it only has 3 letters. But one thing I want to do as well, I want to introduce an idea called anti-fragile. It's not on the slides, but anti-fragile is this. So have you ever looked at when really difficult things happen, it actually strengthens you? Anybody heard of the word anti-fragile before? So anti-fragile is literally something Nassim Taleb made in his book called Anti-Fragility. And it gives us the ability for us to take these items that are happening and actually make us stronger. Wouldn't that be great to say the adverse things that happen to us, whatever they may be, health or other things, actually strengthen us to make us ready for the next thing as well? So when we look at anti-fragility, one thing we want to teach over time is, hey, these things are necessary. Part of what makes it stronger, part of what makes this beautiful green day is a fairly long winter with a lot of rain. Remember, the grass is always greener, right? Where you water it and you put in chemicals. It's good. I'd like to laugh over here. This table gets like an extra $85,000 bar. But I just wanted to go through that idea of anti-fragility as well. It's a good one. So should I be worried about my bank? Anybody here heard anything about banks lately? Yeah, the SVB, even some here, US Bank, others as well. There's been a few that have been in the news lately because of some of their solvency, right? Let me show you one thing here. This chart, which you can all read really, really well, shows at the very top is Silicon Valley Bank. What it's basically showing is the top US banks by uninsured deposit, okay? 93.8% of Silicon Valley Bank's deposits were uninsured. Now, what happened to shareholders? So if you had $250,000 in the bank or more, that's where FDIC insurance typically ends, right? What happened instead? You had $1 million in there, it wasn't insured. You lost your money in normal times, right? What happened this time? The Fed stepped in, and eventually, we're going to pay this. So they stepped in to prevent bank runs from occurring. That was their thought process in this as well. Now there's been 3 other banks that have had some issues lately. Well, Signature Bank, you've heard some, First Republic. Because what's been occurring here, and we just talked about this with interest rates, when they issue a whole bunch of jumbo loans at 3%, these are the bank's currency. They keep them oftentimes in their own portfolio as capital. But if loans today are 6%, who really wants to buy a 3% loan when they can issue one to somebody new at 6%? Would you guys want 3 or 6? Right? So they have to discount these loans. All of a sudden the bank doesn't have capital. And they've got to discount them sometimes 20, 25%. It's what happened at Silicon Valley Bank. So what's also occurring here as well, and I want to give you a sample. Maybe this is a good way to look at it. Because I've got some slides that I I've got some statistics. Let's just leave it at that. In looking at the regulatory capital, let's say of a bank that we might know, Raymond James Bank, they are very conservative. So if you're looking at this scale here, you're finding that actually only, what was our total? 93.8 of ours are FDIC insured at the Raymond James Bank. So why do we choose him as our custodian? So I got to spend about an hour or two with Tom James again just this last week at the Elevate conference. He actually sat next to my daughter as well, and he talked to her. It was wonderful. I said, did you just talk to the 400th richest man in America and one of the nicest? But the cool thing about it, he remains very strong. Clients first, we're not going to take massive risk. You won't hear about us in the news. So illustrating some of those are the capital that our bank, the bank that is with Raymond James, holds, is very important. It's very stable. And this is because they want you to have confidence. They want us to have confidence for you as well. So as we go through some of the stats, you'll find that there's a couple other things which is called assets, tangible assets to common equity. You're going to find on the far low end of the chart, very safe is Raymond James. At the far right side of the chart, 233% capitalized, basically in a really bad position, is Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab recently had to have a loan because short-term capital needs came up and they couldn't sell stuff to get it. So when you look at this, it's very important to understand across these 93 or 100 and some banks. Now, what will happen most likely, if they held their securities to the proper time, they're fine. But today, the way we account for banks, there's been some significant issues. Most importantly, you know what all these statistics really mean? They invoke human fear. And when you decide to start moving your money, there was one billionaire who moved all of his money out of Silicon Bank the very day that Mark Andreessen and Elon Musk said, take your money out of the bank. Boom, moved $1 million. That right there put them in default, along with the other 450,000 other people that did, right? Well, there's only 450 that were there still. I just want to give you a sample of what some of this, you're invoking human fear. Those bank runs we heard of in the 20s were fear. But when you were in the 20s and John Wooden went to his bank and it was closed, he got nothing. There was no insurance that got his money back. He had to start over. The difference today is we have insurance and we have a very accommodating Fed. So bank failure is not something that's right now in their thought process. There's a whole lot more that goes with it. I just want to give you kind of a big picture of it as well. We watch banks very closely. We can talk individually about any of the banks you say. Some of the banks may have been named around here as well, some of the regional banks, because they have some longer term assets. The more you invested in long-term assets at a very low interest rate, the more risk there is. One thing about Silicon Valley Bank on their board, they had one board member that had banking experience. One. Might that lead to some trouble? Maybe. Maybe that was part of it.
What's Chase Bank like?
What is Chase Bank? It's a big, huge bank. They got a lot of capital. JP Morgan Chase is pretty safe bank. The bigger picture. Actually, one of the ones right there purchasing First Republic, or one of the front runners to it. The thing is, the government doesn't want them to get bigger because they're so big. So they got this weird issue. Well, they can afford to buy them, but they don't want them to be a monopoly. So you've kind of got a dichotomy going on there. It's fun to watch all the conversations. I read a lot of stuff, so I don't want to give this all to you in the details, but great question, great question.
So a great question. What should we do with our cash reserves right now? So earlier you heard me talk a little bit about inflation and how you want to make sure that your cash is keeping up with it. Otherwise, you're in a way losing value on what that is. And right now with the checking accounts, some of them are giving a little bit of a return, but typically it's a percentage of it's a fraction of a percent, exactly. And so with that, or physical cash that you hold, or maybe you have buried in your backyard, I'm not sure. But the opportunity is out there right now to get a little bit of return and to have that money working a little bit more for you and still keeping it safe. And those opportunities are in money markets, high yield money market options. Raymond James has one. We also look at money market mutual funds, which offers, right now there's one out there that offers 4.83% on your cash with safety. And those are options out there for you. And one that I do also want to highlight that we've talked about before is I-bonds. And I-bonds are, that you saw the headlines before. You were able to get 9% in this cash alternative, an I-bond, right? Well, new issue I-bonds now that inflation's starting to get tamed a little bit is sitting at about 4.3% for a new issue. An I-bond that was purchased at 9%, which is an annual rate, by the way, so you got 4.5% for 6 months on that, which is still a great rate of return for that moment. But those new issues, Because interest rates were actually extremely low, there's a fixed component, and that was at 0%. So now the variable component, which is what is linked to inflation, if with an I bond purchased when it was 9%, is returning 3.4%. So that's something to kind of consider when we talk about these things, why we always want to bring them up to you and have those conversations. If you think that there's an opportunity out there for you to get something, or you see one of these headlines, please bring it up to us, because we'd love to talk about it and the long-term effects that could exist with it.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. So does anybody here know a farmer? Anybody been a farmer? I know. Thank you. Yes, exactly. Why do I say that? Because if you look at this, one of my farmer clients recently told me, Chris, there's so much going on. It frightens me. I am scared as all get out. I'm going to bury all my money. So why would you do that? He goes, hey, I want to have rich soil. Another good kid joke. Should I be worried about cyber threats? So this to me becomes a very, very big subject. Anybody here ever gotten a text from Amazon or somebody that your delivery's late? Can't deliver it, some address, call and give me your credit card and your birth date and your social security number and we'll deliver it, right? Yeah, right, wrong. So if anybody's thinking that's the case, how about I want to give you one sample. There was a gentleman who was working on our front door for a couple of days. You know, one of the old craftsmen, German workers, and he knows a few choice words, which is pretty funny. I won't bring them up now. But I'm in the front room and I hear, oh, something that rhymes with truck. And he yells it really loud. I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? He hurt himself? So I walk around and look. He goes, you okay? He goes, oh, I got to go take care of something right now. I'm like, well, what is it? What is it? He goes, somebody just charged something at Best Buy. They just got an email and said somebody charged something at Best Buy here to call this number, and I got to, oh man, I got to go take care of it. I said, hey, can you show me that? Can you show me that? He goes, you ever bought anything at Best Buy? He goes, I don't even know what it is. But he was going to call them and surely be led down that path, right? But this is still happening. Why are they still doing it? Because on many people, it works. So when you get something, I asked him, do you have a credit card? Well, yeah. I said, until it shows up on your credit card, ignore it. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you. See this? This is how you delete it. He goes, oh, really? I mean, it took him from really elevated. He's going to run out of there too. Oh, okay, very quickly. But this is still happening. So cyber threats can happen as much as, here's giving you one sample here. Raymond James spends a lot of money just on email protection. So if you take a look at this graph up here, and when I first joined Raymond James, they spend $100 million on technology a year. That was 18 years ago, $100 million, one of the top in the industry. Today, that's $750 million. That's $750 million. Paul Riley, my good friend and CEO, said, I think we're going to be spending $1 billion in the not too short future. And that's to keep your assets safe. And I said, just one sample is emails. Every single day, Raymond James gets 160 million emails, and its advisors do. 71 million are blocked right away through these filters here. You can't see them, but there's about 15 different filters. Then tap signatures, classifiers, phishing, Vinus, spam, imposter bulk takes another 6.6 million. Essentially, when you look at the end, about half of those actually get delivered to us. Once in a while, one of yours might get caught up in there if you say something about phishing or spam, right? But in this scenario, that's how many on a daily basis are happening, and that's just emails, not to mention cyber attacks and threats. Now, when you see this, what's really interesting, let me show you a quick one on the, this is the existing process of what they run through in just getting something inside of Raymond James. They've got about 16 different softwares. We actually at our office have something called the Fortinet Gateway, which is actually a very, very strong enterprise-wide safety feature to prevent people from getting into your information. It's like a firewall in our office as well. So in addition to these 16, we have one or two. We've got RSA Security. They spend a lot of time. If you look at their war room at Raymond James in Florida, it's a massive room. It looks like the Department of Defense, or I hope that's what the Department of Defense looks like. But it's constant. It's showing you where the threats are coming from, where they're going to, who's looking for it, where the originations are. Reason I bring this up is because we've had, from time to time, anybody here experienced getting an email, getting something that you've seen, and maybe talking to Microsoft and realizing it wasn't really Microsoft, right? Those things happen. More importantly, to some of our clients, what's happened is they're getting better and better at impersonating people. So right now, I'm going to talk about Chat.GPT and a few others, taking your voice or Lisa's voice. So when you call and you think it's Lisa, right? Or Lisa calls you and says, hey, you should take some money out or something, or whatever it is. You got to be very careful. We may actually say, hang up and call us back. We're trying to figure out other ways to verify this as well, because cyber attacks are becoming much more sophisticated as well. Yes, also this, much more bold. There's a person in, I think it was in Florida, and what they did is they posed as the client. They opened up an account at Wells Fargo. They actually went as far as getting a paper signed by Paul Riley with his signature on it. That's our CEO of the whole company. And beginning to take money from this account that wasn't really theirs and putting it into an account at Wells Fargo. They're bold enough to walk into a branch and open up. So when you're looking at cybersecurity and cyber threats, we're constantly on the lookout for these and preventing them from happening. So if you have one extra step, if you aren't, two-step authenticity, take a look at doing so. We want to make sure that you're safe. So we spend a lot of money and time on that. I didn't really mean to beat that up. Is that important to you guys? Yeah. Okay. I'll continue to give you more on that. They've got a wonderful presentation they might do on this as well. We'll do it on Zoom. But this was very, very interesting. Our CEO talked about this for about 20 or 30 minutes at our Elevate conference, and we were captivated by it. It's great because we want to understand what they're doing to keep you safe, and most importantly, your information safe. It's a firewall. I have a friend who's the head. He does all the security for the Department of Defense. It's more difficult to get into Raymond James than it is Department of Defense. He won't put that on. He won't put that out as a quote. But there's so many vendors on the DoD that there's ways to get in. Raymond James looks to really make sure they're all sealed. So, any questions about that? Anybody get one of those texts right now while we're here? No, okay.
It's kind of funny because when everybody get a text from Amazon or Netflix saying your account's been locked or something's wrong. So my wife runs over to me the other day. She's like, Kenny, I think there's something wrong with the Amazon account. I'm like, I don't think so. She's like, no, it says it's locked. I says, really? I don't think there's anything wrong. She's like, I think there's something wrong. I said, are the packages still showing up at her front door? She said, yeah, they are. I said, there's nothing wrong. But that's the reality of it, though, right? You have to be careful. Does your Netflix still work? There's nothing wrong, right? Otherwise, they shut it off right away.
One of the biggest things we're seeing right now from questions from you is, where will I live in retirement? And it's not necessarily even right now. Anybody here decided to move from their existing home to a place that they enjoy that doesn't require all the, yes, thank you, Dave, I know this. It doesn't require all the responsibility. And what it is also it has community as well. So what happens when let me give you a sample of my grandfather. So he was at 87 years old, he caught a cold, he had a virus, and it really hit him pretty heavily. Also, my grandma had passed away, so he was living by himself. He seemed as if he wasn't long for this world. So we moved to a new place called Bickford Home. It had 2 or 3 rooms, but it was 50 different rooms like that with 50 different people that he could get together with. He shined. He rose up again. He found a lady friend. He was a king of the court on certain things. And this is a very humble, quiet, shy guy. So it was really neat to see him kind of, wow, this is my... So we had 8 extra years with him because guess what he found? He found community. He wasn't in his home alone every single day. And that was very important. So we're looking at this from you guys asking questions. I like taking care of my home, but maybe I don't want to in the future. What are the alternatives? So we're putting together a module that has some alternatives for living. Remember, Gentian is plan it, live it, give it. We understand that we're here for the planet we started. However, living it is extremely important. And this has become a very important place. Where will I live? You spend 70% of your time there. So looking and investing, is this of interest to anyone? Good. So we're going to see more from us on this. What are the alternatives? Deb and I found out there was something where they have this place where you're 55 and older and they'll have meals every day. We're like, we're in. They'll do your laundry? Girls, you can stay at the house. We're moving in. Anyway. So we want to just give you an idea that this is something we're looking at as well. Questions like that, bring them up to us. Things you're really considering. Legacy, other things as well. So please feel free. Is Gentian accepting new clients? Yes. We want to say thank you tremendously for the introductions you're giving us. The team you're seeing here has grown. Why? To serve the people you are introducing to us. Many of you have given us your kids, or your kids have come by us because you've seen the experience with us. Now we're even seeing some of your grandkids. Very, very cool to see where we're here and willing to help them. A lot of firms won't because they're like, just cast them off. We know they're very important to you. We want to help give a great base to some of the most important people in your life. And that's your kids and grandkids as well. So don't hesitate with that too. We've got a team that can help them. How about financial planning, Ken? Why don't you come up with some of the ideas that we need for financial planning? This is, normally you've seen the 8 that we have here, which are not having a team assembled. These are the great mistakes. Not having an overall plan, not having or not preparing an honest budget. Oh, I can get by on this. Okay, sure. Projecting returns that are too high, bad habits, which are typically spending, not planning for the spouse that doesn't handle finance, not making decisions while we still can, and then lack of purpose. This is a very big one. It's called liminality. These are the 8 great planning mistakes. We're not going to go through every one today, but what we want to do is make sure we address one every once in a while.
Yeah, for sure. If you go to the next slide here, I was in, like I said, D.C. for a 2-day tax seminar. This was one of the books that they gave us to study on. 200 pages of tax law and IRAs. Riveting, isn't it? 401ks, right? I read it front to back twice. We usually get 2 of these, but I was wondering, I said, why don't we get one this time? Is because when they passed Secure Act 2.0, they passed on December 29th, 2022. Now think about that for a second. The story goes like this. This is how it happened. So Washington was a ghost town. Congress passed it, right? President was gone in St. Croix, on vacation already. Some Washington crony comes out with a 4-page document in his travel bag, probably took Southwest to say, I don't know, St. Croix maybe. Turns out president's on the beach and signs this thing, right? There are so many mistakes in here. There's so many to be determines with Secure Act 2.0 that we can't even give the full advice that you're looking for on some of these topics because we don't know it. Wouldn't that be really nice, instead of pushing this through on like December 29th, that they actually pass something meaningful like in June? So to give us maybe like 4 or 5 months to think about this and like, how figure out how it benefits you all, instead of like 2 days, come back in the office on January 1, and by the way, we have a whole new law to follow. Some of the things that would that did change in Secure Act 2.0 that affect a lot of you is the required minimum distribution age. It started off at 70 and a half, went to 72, now it's 73. Over the next 10 years, it'll be at 75. So we'll keep pace with that as well. What's that? Yeah, isn't that amazing? Some of you are past it. Some of you are about to experience what it means to take out X amount of dollars from your IRA. We'll help you with that process, what to do with it, the best use of those monies for you. Spending is one of them. The other part here is rollovers from a 529 plan. This might be a big one for some of you that started a college plan for one of your grandkids or kids, and some of it's left over, didn't use it all. There's actually rules now that we can move some of those monies to a Roth IRA for that beneficiary. Now again, to be determined. There's so many different rules that could go on with this. Can we switch beneficiaries on the 529 plan? Can we kind of put it to where we want it to put it? You have to own it for 15 years. There's so many things that are going on right now, but we will keep you up to date when we know more on Secure Act 2.0. So the other one, this is how goofy this is. Those who are still contributing, I know a lot of you are retired, but your kids that are still working right now, there's something called catch-up provisions in a 401k plan. If you're over a certain age, you can put more in. Right? They actually strike that out of the law. It doesn't even exist anymore. So next year, if they don't do anything, people can't even make excess contributions that have already existed for years and years and years. This is how goofy this stuff is. But I promise you, we'll keep you up to date. I love this stuff. You see my eyes? Remember when she said I was like passionate about this, like gleaming with passion? I love this. I love this kind of stuff for you all. So with a little bit of levity there, I was in D.C., so here's an appropriate joke for D.C. Does anybody know where the Declaration of Independence was signed? Feel it? At the bottom. At the bottom. You got it right.
That's right. Thanks, Greg. Michael, why don't you do charitable giving?
Absolutely. So when it comes to charitable giving, and we have a ton of clients, all of you included, that love to give to charity, do a couple different things with that, it's actually a wonderful tool to be tax efficient and to make decisions with it. And there's different ways of doing that. So if you are giving to charity, especially if you're giving out of your checking account specifically or writing cash, there's actually ways from your retirement accounts using a QCD or gifting appreciated stock, which gives you the option to avoid capital gain tax and pass that off to a charity who doesn't have to pay it. So whenever you're giving, and if you're thinking about some of these things or want to give, let us know. We can kind of look at your whole scenario and find the best way to do that, and that can be the most tax efficient for you.
Thank you, Mike. That was really quick. Any questions about charitable giving? No, many of you are examples of how we should give. It's very individualized, so thank you.
A lot of these pieced together. Don't want to go into a huge amount of detail on the Roth conversions. A lot of you have had the conversations with Chris, Ken, and our team, myself for quite a while now. The nice thing about qualified charitable distributions, they also pair with Roth conversions. You have your required distribution. If you're taking those, if you're of age or taking those that way, your qualified charitable distribution actually directly reduces it. The unfortunate thing with conversions, you have to satisfy your required minimum distribution first before you can do a conversion. But there's so many different factors that go into should we convert. The main one being that makes sense to a lot of people is, are we at a lower tax bracket now than in the future? Or if our goal is to give to our kids, what's something with the Secure Act that Ken mentioned, a 10-year distribution from IRAs. If our goal and intention is to potentially have that leave to our beneficiaries, it's IRA dollars that is taxable as ordinary income to them. However, the Roth is tax-free. So many different decisions. One of the biggest one last year when we talked about those asset classes with rebalancing, some of our best funds were temporarily down the most in the 1-year time frame. Instead of just selling them and converting over to cash from your IRA to the Roth, we converted the actual security while it was down. Last year in November, the large cap company, we converted that over to Roth. This year it's the #1 performing asset class. So instead of just it growing back in your IRA, have to pay ordinary income on that someday, it's now tax-free to us when it goes back in Roth.
Thank you, Zach.
Amazing tool.
The next one is Social Security. Everyone, most of you are collecting or close to it in this, so I'm not going to talk about when you're going to get it. You already know when you get it. One of the areas to be aware of, though, is the taxability of Social Security that comes up a lot. Because when you start talking about this Roth conversion planning that we're doing, that means that you're adding more income to your overall scenario. So that means that there's a potential that your Social Security becomes more taxable in that situation. Not only to mention the more income we have, a lot of we have to take into consideration Medicare as well. There's something called IRMA, right? That means if you have extra income above and beyond about $90-some thousand, you're going to pay more than $164 of Part B. So that's called IRMA. So the more income we add on, we have to be aware of the interplay of taxability and also your Medicare premiums that you are paying. We have to be aware of those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other one, the big one on Social Security is survivorship benefits. This is becoming more and more relevance and prevalence in our meetings about, hey, what happens if something happens to my spouse? We don't want that to happen, but our journeys are going to end at some point in time. Am I going to be okay? It's a big question we'll help you answer if you're thinking that. I know a lot of you are because you bring it up to me. Am I going to be okay? What's going to happen? Do things change? Am I going to have enough income? That's all on top of the grieving part of losing a significant other. That's the hardest part. The financial part will help you through and we'll make sure that you are okay.
Income planning, it's what we do for you. I don't need to go through a whole lot of it. It's just as important as it ever has been, especially in this environment. We've got a few securities now where our bonds are actually starting to give us return. It's a great new environment. So bonds are now additive to a portfolio rather than just a place to hold on. So an interesting time for income planning. But healthcare planning, a lot of you guys have talked about as well. One we'll add to the bottom of this is also long-term healthcare planning, which is a super important part of the equation. But when you talk about, like Ken has mentioned, a lot of what we've done, income planning, it actually generates issues that may occur with your Medicare planning. IRMA is part of it. So we look into this. We've got some of our great tax partners and estate planners here, and they help us with this in a tremendous, and also so does Ed Slott. So this is all interplaying. In interest of time, anybody have questions on these? No? Yes?
No, I just wanted to give a shout out
Please.
to Tom Wozniak.
Yes.
Compass Benefits. Excellent. We've had to switch around a few things, and
Awesome.
he was awesome and super helpful.
Good. So one of our premier partners, Tom, over at Compass, helps a lot of you and has helped a lot of you with your Medicare planning. Fantastic. He'll take the time, he'll sit down, get to know you, and that's why, again, we like how he operates. So we want to have people like that we can introduce to you as well. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know. Perfect. So this right now is a time that you all came here for, because we're going to get into a few questions here. I'm going to lead with one question before we take this 3 or 4 minute break. First of all, if you could live forever, would you? So if you're intrigued by that question, stick around for the technology section. If you're not, it's been good to see you today and thank you for staying. So the technology section coming up now is a download from Abundance 360. So we'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes here, and then we'll come back and we'll hit you really with some of the biggest highlights of technology that we've seen today. Well, before we go into the technology, can I give all of my team a big hand? Let's all give for setting this up, putting this together, taking care of you every day. They make this real. So, of course, the rewards that happen, we see our names in magazines. It's really about you guys, number one, and your commitment to us. It's about them taking care of you on a day-to-day basis. I'm just the tallest one at the firm, so the awards come to me. But a couple of different things. I just wanted to say here, we're now entering a period of time. Anybody here wonder about technology? Is technology affecting anyone's life? Yeah? Yeah? So here's something we did. We began in gratitude. But what I want to begin the technology session with, rather than just a crazy statement like I'd said, is, does anybody have one of these here? These cell phones I've asked you to silence? Yeah? Would you guys humor me for like 2 minutes? Pull out your cell phones, please. If your cell phone is at home, do not go home and get it. Just go ahead and pull your cell phone out. What I'd like to do is something right now called instant gratitude. It's going to have some wonderful effects, mainly on you, which is great. But take your text or email, whichever you most use, and what I'd like you to do is think of someone that you want to text and tell them how much you appreciate them. Son, daughter, federal government, me, just whatever you guys want to choose. But take a moment, and I want you to express to them how much you appreciate them or how much they mean to you. Something of gratitude to them. All right, have many of you sent that? So let me ask a question right now. How do you feel after sending that? Do you feel any different? I do. I feel much better that I've expressed that to somebody else. So, you didn't get it yet? You didn't send it? That's okay. That's all right. We'll get it. We'll get there. But the whole point is this. Here's the typical response. Are you okay? That's good. It's hilarious. It's one of the first things you'll get back is a question of, is anything wrong? Should I know something? So it's really quite funny. But what I want to do is exemplify why this is important. Because community is extremely important. If you don't express gratitude to somebody, gratitude unperceived is expressed as what? Ingratitude. You're not grateful for anything, right? So it's a really cool thing. As you start to get responses, I'm going to see smiles pop up when people see, yeah, that's exactly what it said. Yep. Matter of fact, during the break, one of my clients here, Ken, had found that he got that Amazon text while he was here. Apparently Amazon's waiting, so he called him, gave him his, his email, gave him the date of birth, and then the credit card number just in case they needed it, right? Matter of fact, he gave him somebody else's credit card number too. I don't know what quite that was. But anyway, I want to start with that. So the technology summit that I'm going to show you here in just a minute is called Abundance 360, but it's much more than that. My interest in technology goes very deep. I, years ago, have started with computers, technology, networking. It's what a lot of your money has been made on is the technology, computers, us becoming much more becoming much better because of what computers offer us, right? They can do things quicker. Yeah, we're much more productive, if you will. But what's interesting about technology here is I've been at this group called Abundance 360 now for 10 years. I've learned to come into it. First of all, it was 3 days to begin with, 2.5 days. And in the first 4 hours, you're like, what? You're amazed, and you can't believe it. So now you've got 2.5 days to survive in this state of, oh my gosh, and it just gets worse. What I've learned to do is go in now with a filter. I know there's stuff that's happening that I can never comprehend. So what I want to offer to you today, rather than going through every single technology piece that I saw and who's doing it, I'll give you some highlights. But what I want to start with is this. Does anybody here have great-grandparents? Maybe not living. Yes. Do you realize when they were born, every 100 years, all information in the world doubled. Every 100 years. And that's, through most of history, what happened with technology information, right? It doubled every 100 years. So a couple of 3, 4 lifetimes, technology would double, and we'd move on, and we'd still hoe the ground, we'd still plant the seeds, we'd still do what we had to do. Light the fire, cut down the wood. But the computer chip was invented, and by about 1984, 1988, all of a sudden, in the early 90s, every 18 months, all information in the world doubled. That is astounding, right? But there's more. We're looking at, as of a year ago, every 12 hours, all information in the world doubles. And that's not to mention things like ChatGPT that are creating more information now. Now, it could be every 6 hours, just an estimate. So you now can get in every 6 hours and create in the world all the data, technology, and information that used to be created over 100 years. Let me ask you a question. Are our brains built for that? No. Our brains were built for relationship, for gathering wood, for other things. So why do we feel so confused? Why do we feel anxious? Why is anxiety off the charts? Right? We now get all the information we could ever want. Oh, maybe that wasn't the answer. So what I'm going to explore today with you, I'm going to talk about technology, but maybe in a couple different realms. Maybe not in everything that it's doing, because every single day there's something happening that can astound you. From flying cars, so I almost flew in here in something, it's called the Gentian. I told my wife about it. It's $90,000. And I said, it's just silly, right? But I can literally fly in here. It's got 4 propellers. I fit in it, they told me. But instead of the 20-minute flight time, since I weigh so much, it'd be like 17 minutes. I thought, that'd be so cool to fly in. Can I rent one? How cool would that be to see me flying in this little Jetson and land on there and come to the seminar? Pretty sweet, right? That's a technology we see there. I'm also sitting at tables with people there who believe that impossible is nothing. So everything is possible. What I'm going to show you here as well is people, if it's not happening today, they're working on it. So very interesting. First thing, though, let me do is I want to show you this summit. I want to show you what it is. It's a little summary. Now, it's very quick. You're going to see some of the names on it, some of the pieces, but I want to give you a flavor of what it is and at about the speed that it comes to me when I'm there over 4 days. So let me show you, okay? You guys ready?
I'm doing great, Peter. All of my words are powered by ChatGPT, and I can speak 30 languages.
So the last thing you saw on screen there was a quantum computer. Does anybody know what that is? Anybody heard of a quantum computer? It's computers which process at about 10 million times the speed of processors today. What it can do for computations are any code you could possibly create whatsoever, it could decode inside of 7 seconds. So those are things that we're talking about that are reality. I was introduced to the idea of quantum computing 7 years ago. So let me give you a little bit of an idea of what I saw here, that just in the tech hub, we've got a room set up with all this technology. The future of food, we 3D printed food. I ate like 4 different kinds of food that has never been in an animal. And it was phenomenal. You wouldn't know the difference. Matter for some of it's better than it's been in an animal. And the ethical aspects of it, a lot of people were cheering. Although it's $4,000 a pound right now, you're not going to find it at Whole Foods yet. Black box, there's a bunch of things like Singularity, Meta, Tailspin. I wanted to show you another one, Arctide. They're creating communities floating. So they're creating cities that are actually self-sustaining, that are floating on water. These are the people that are there. This is just consistent. You saw a robot as well we could speak to with AI. You've got haptics. The gloves can let you feel exactly what you'd feel if you were somewhere else. So you can be a person that's somewhere else, not only feeling, but they're also working on smelling, the olfactory senses as well. So if you're walking through an orange grove, you could reach up and touch an orange and also smell it as well. These little things right here are going to allow you to walk like this in one spot, but it's going to feel like you're walking or hiking in the Grand Canyon. So you've got people working on these kind of things. They're asking people to invest, or they're asking, we can try them all out. We got to try out the Jetson. There's people there who are looking for all sorts of different ideas. The Jetson that I was talking about is this little manned unit here that you sit into and you can fly. There's no pilot's license needed. It's simply a drone technology. It's $90,000, so if you want an order, please feel free, reach out. Storyfile, Sensix, they're doing things now. They're finding that light is very much affecting a great portion of your body. So there's actually, you can buy a unit you can sit in. It will actually work light through your body to cure different items and cure anxieties especially as well. Now, those were open every single night. So you could go in any night with VR glasses to just all sorts of amazing different items. So this is where you are. You're kind of in a fairy world in this little place in California. This one happened to be at Rancho Palos Verdes. It was really interesting, but the most important thing that comes from this are the questions. The questions that come from this to me, I'll go through some of the highlights, but let's ask this. The biggest subject we talked about was artificial intelligence. You've heard about it, right? Right? Some of you say it's my husband or my wife, right? However, when we take a look at this, we fear change a lot of times. So let me ask you a question. What do you guys think about technology? Are you guys excited about it? Or are you afraid of it? So go ahead. Who's excited about technology? Raise your hand. Awesome. Who is afraid of technology? Who thinks there's some fears? Good. It's about an equal amount. And sometimes the same people raising their hand. Very good. We've talked about this over time. Technology is massive and transformative. This is the fifth, if you're looking really the fifth wave, artificial intelligence is just like the internet. It changed. It demonetized companies. You've got companies like Netflix, one of the biggest companies in the world, that doesn't really have anything. It simply delivers to you movies. That's it. Used to give them to you in 2 days. Now it gives them to you instantaneously. With 6G, you're going to be able to get the entire content of the internet in 1 second. Boom. Downloaded. So these are the things that are coming. They're talking about. They're living in this kind of world. So you've got people skating to where the puck is. But when you look at technology, I'm more important with how is it going to affect me? What are the fears that I have? Right? Because the biggest aspect of technology for you is how might it affect my family? How might it affect my day-to-day? There's some really cool things you're seeing, we talk about, right? But those are typically the exciting things in the news. If bad actors get a hold of technology, like your telephone number, like your Amazon account, like your text, what do? They send 100 million a day because guess 50 people will respond. So technology needs to have two sides. So let me ask a question. So rather than me just espousing all the stuff that I can go through here, first of all, welcome to a life of acceleration. The good old days that you remember are truly that. That's today and backward. Appreciate them. Talk about them with your kids. More importantly, journal. Write them down. Artificial intelligence will be able to take everything you've ever written, which they're doing for Albert Einstein and Galileo and other people now, and they're allowing you to be able to just talk with those people who have passed away. You can talk with Einstein and ask questions about his theory of relativity or how it was to live in X, Y, or Z. If you have enough stuff written down, capturing your thoughts is one of the more important things that you can do for future generations. Okay? So as I look at artificial intelligence, that's some of the positives. But let me ask a question. So let's actually, anybody here have any fears? What's the worry? I know on the way in my wife was asking, how's this going to affect me? Sandy, yeah.
Yes, my fear is it is developing apart from a moral compass.
Good. So it's developing apart from a moral compass. That's a fear. Good. I'll address that in just a moment. Was there another question? Yeah, Jürgen. Regulation. Yeah. Right, regulation. So here's what's happening. So I'm there with all the people creating. So let me first start, artificial intelligence actually began in 1963 in Dartmouth University. So this isn't brand new. This has been working over time. Why has it gotten to where it has? Because of the multifold exponential nature of technology. I'm going to come back to these two questions because they're very important, but let me do this. So the world we used to live in, anybody here have parents and they were kind of concerned about hoarding stuff because you're never going to get any more? Yeah, so you get government cheese, you get a pie. Let's do a sample of a pie. You got a pie. There's people coming over. You got to cut that pie really, really, really small because guess what? We need to keep this. This is our pie. It's the only pie we've got. That's the world of scarcity. That's what we're coming from. The world of abundance is, let's just bake more pies. A simple idea, right? But it's revolutionary. We are encoded with this. Moving into this. Right now, we could feed everybody on the earth. This is what Tony Robbins said. We could feed everybody on earth. Guess what? We just don't have the distribution model to do it. So hunger is within our grasp. It's not the food. It's actually the distribution of it as well. As I come back to the two ideas here about the regulation. So, like I said before, does anybody know any humans? Who coded large language models to make artificial intelligence? That's all it is. It's somebody putting a bunch of information into something that it can actually ask questions and learn from itself in. Right now, it's most of the people who are in Silicon Valley. Now, my question is, might they have a certain view? Might they have a certain political affiliation? I mean, these are possibilities, right? Just somebody who wrote it who was in Texas. They would have certain ideas. So if humans are flawed, the large language models inside of artificial intelligence are also what? Because they're created by humans, right? Just like markets, they're irrational. So you start to look at some of these. You want to take a look at regulation. That was a good question too. These right now are all being developed with good in mind, good intention. The writers of them are writing them with hope and them to do good, like solve climate change, help find children who are lost, help fight slavery in other countries, right? That's what they're designed for. And they'll put those things to task. The trouble is, we all know that just as that good intention is there, it can go where? To another country, to another person who's a bad actor within our own country. And these are very powerful. So I think as you look at the regulation, anybody here watch 60 Minutes like 3 weeks ago? Yeah, the head of Google came out and he said, I don't think society's ready for this. Nobody has a choice though. This is coming at us, whether we choose it to or not. It's here. Now I got to look at these large language models and say, it's interesting. Has anybody used chat.gpt? Anybody, you've heard of it, right? But have you used it? We've had one or two in the back, right? So it's interesting. If you ask it to write a song, Peter literally put those 4 things in. Chat.gpt wrote that intro. And then she is a large language model neural network who doesn't exist, but actually she does. She was the model of it. And we were able to talk through her. She seemed like she was a team member, right? This is what's happening. So the question I think my wife even had that goes along with this, how do I know if it's really Vladimir Putin or Joe Biden who's potentially going to push the button to start a world war? So I think the security of this is very important. The authentication is very important. We want to know if that's truly human-made or not. Now, my daughter's class just this year, kids are very smart. Anybody here have grandkids that are really smart? So I believe it was 17 of the people in her class who wrote college admissions reports. 17 of them, I think 4 of them were 95% chat GPT. Many were like over 50%, so they were all disqualified. Disqualified. Basically a 0. A 0 versus, it's a graded thing. You write these college entrance, letters. What the professor decided to do, though, is he went back and let them all redo it without being chat.gpt. Now, how could he figure this out? Because the same people who created chat.gpt created another software. And that software is one that recognizes whether it was ChatGPT generated or not. So this is what's happening right now. We're getting people who says, I can decode it. It comes from this. It comes from this large language model. So we're getting large language models detecting fraud, detecting that it was written by a large language model as well. So The most important thing about this, and why do we fret about this? Why do we worry about technology? Because technology and chat.gpt and AI literally can impersonate another human being. Literally. So the good news about this is, here's some of the great technology going on. They've got a skull cap that can actually capture your thoughts. So if you are looking at dementia, if you're looking at potentially not having memories that you've had, you can actually capture them all, put them on a chip, and keep them, and then instant recall them when you need to. What might that do to Alzheimer's? What might that do to dementia? One of my clients said, Chris, how about Alzheimer's? How about just getting old? I've forgotten more stuff than I remember. That was a good one. I think one of you guys said that to me. But as you look at this, there's some incredible things happening. So now, with chat.gpt, if you could go back to your great-great-grandparents who came over on a boat, and they decided to pick up their chest with just a few things in it, and about $42 or maybe $4 at the time, and leave for another country, wouldn't you have been interested to ask them, what's in your mind right now? You're leaving the very place you've been for 2,000 years to go to someplace unknown called America. With chat.gpt, you can capture yourself for future generations as well. So that's why I say writing, talking, putting those things into some place where you can capture them are very important for the future. So let me give you a couple things. So I will go some of the technology and amaze you because it's kind of fun. I wrote some of this stuff down. So some of the things we've looked at, and this is how a lot of them look at technology. You guys ever played Monopoly? Have you guys ever played Monopoly where somebody starts with all the hotels and the money? Unfortunately, that's what's happening in the world. We are all here complaining about our front of our yachts being scratched. Oh my gosh, my yacht is scratched. Well, people in the world are carrying water, right, for us to make microchips that we can use in things. But what's interesting about this is the AI and the human bias will, even with its human bias, will level the playing field. There's people who can now get into industries that couldn't before. It's leveled the playing field where you used to have a big barrier to entry. You now can look up things. I can actually, any book you give me, I can summarize on chat.gpt in about 20 seconds. Hey, have you read that book? No. Just a minute, though. Oh, here's the top 10 points on it. So all of a sudden, you've got this at your fingertips. So the future is not just AI. It's AI-human collaboration. It's together. Let me ask you a question. What can AI do? What can artificial intelligence do? Diagnose medical conditions. Can it do anything about it? Can't do the operation, right? Not yet.
Probably prescribe, though.
It can prescribe, right? Absolutely prescribe, but it can't fill the medicine. Can't know other symptoms yet. So what you start to find is right now, artificial intelligence can do 100%, and it can actually predict 100% of what happened yesterday. So you think about that way, predict what happened yesterday. That's right, all it is talking about the past. These large language models are there for our use, but it's not going to break through anything. It's going to give us other opportunities. That's a very good point. Might it do surgery for us? Yes, Da Vinci is actually talking about their robots doing surgery on somebody without a surgeon involved. Who here wants to volunteer for that? Yeah, I thought so. Another one as well, so education. What's happening with education? So our education system educates us to about what standards, what year? 1950, generally? That was the base model of what we have. How about now, Joe Coughlin talks about our education having about a 3.5-year runway once we graduate from college. 3.5 years, you need to be re-educated again. Technology is able to do this. If I've now got all the information and knowledge that's available for me in my head on an instant recall, what is education? What does college do? What does Marquette do? Right? It teaches us to be better humans, maybe? Maybe that's the new aspect of it. So let me ask you 2 questions again here. You guys all have one of these things, right? We're all able to do what? You can communicate, you can get on Facebook, you can get all your music, you can go to anything you'd like to, right? Instantaneously. If you got to call somebody, you can call them right now. So with this ability to communicate instantaneously, we can communicate all the time. Our relationships are better, right? There's less divisiveness, right? We're all coming together as a world, right? Well, wait, but we have communication anytime we want it. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe we're not such great communicators. Maybe what we need to work on is actually ourselves and our human being communication with others, tolerance of other people's opinion. More importantly, working with other people. Because we have instantaneous communication. And what has it created? Anxiety. Loneliness. Everybody's connected with this instead of with this. Do you guys remember what visiting was? Remember what that used to be? Somebody comes over on Sunday night. Who is it? I don't even know. They just show up. We share the pie with them. Right? So instead, right now, my Saturday night, let's page through, see what everybody's doing. Everybody's paging through stuff. Right? But somebody put some pictures on there like, look, I'm in Africa. Oh man, I wish I was in Africa. That's so cool. So this has really hurt what I call our self and our relationships with others. Now, let me ask another question, if I will. So you can now get all the information you want at any point in time. Chat.GPT can look it up for you if you don't know what to ask. Well, let me do this first. With all the technology that's there and available and all the knowledge that you have, are we making better, are we less irrational? Are we making better decisions? Do you still see humans that make bad decisions? Anybody raise your hand? Yeah. Don't point at your spouse. We make irrational decisions still as humans. So here's the thing. There's human biases in here. If we start to look at this, one thing we're looking at with Abundance 360 and all of what's going on, the conversation, how do we teach morals, character, and values? Is it going to be Chat.GPT talking about them? So it's a great question, Sandy, as you led into this. How are we going to regulate that? Who says what's moral and amoral? Has anybody ever seen the internet? If that's going to be the basis for it, who decides? So as I look at technology, if we have more and more information, what good is it unless we can make better decisions that are going to affect ourselves? Now, here's a couple things I want to give you that does offer us hope. And I ask this question. So, one thing about artificial intelligence, people are more willing to open up to it than they are to a human being. So in diagnosing depression, in diagnosing very tough personal issues, more people are willing to open up to artificial intelligence, like the woman you saw on screen, than they would to a person. There's some huge strides that might make in actually curing some of this. I'll leave it at that. What can't be replicated with artificial intelligence? Anybody want to venture a guess? Caring, emotions, love, morals. The relationship you have with a human being here, you know. Now they're going to try to mimic it. They're going to try to mimic that with words. But it's not emotive like we are. We haven't yet explored what a soul is. So there's a whole aspect. Yesterday, one of our clients, John, who was one of Zach's family's friends, said, well, there's a whole spiritual aspect to this as well. How does it talk about spirituality and God? Sure, we're imperfect. We can never approach perfect. But how do we operate as imperfect humans with artificial intelligence? Isn't it just going to make things even mushier? So it was a really, really good point as we went through. Here's another one too. Imagine 2045. This comes directly from Elon Musk. In 2045, there'll be more robots on Earth than there are humans. What kind of world might that be? Personally, anybody seen the Jetsons? Yeah. That robot Rosie that's the house cleaner, I totally can't wait for that. That's pretty cool. I'm in for that. But right now at home, I have a little kind of a unit from Google called Astro. What it can do is monitor your house. If something breaks or whatever, it finds out what's going on. But more importantly, I can give it to my mom. And if she has fallen and nobody can see that, it can go, are you okay? If not, it can call me. So you're looking at ways that artificial intelligence and technology can help in a dramatic, great way for those of us who live by ourselves. But these are some of the things we're finding it can cure. And people at this Abundance 360 are there inventing new ways to do it. So interestingly, I sat at a table with a gentleman, and as we're talking about curing, hunger, there's this Tony Robbins is saying, hey, if you want to donate some money to curing world hunger, do it. And everybody's doing, $500 or $100 and there's one $50,000. Well, who did that? This kind of European gentleman over here, just kind of goofy, apparently was the fourth founder of Oculus. Now, Oculus was sold to Facebook for $2.6 billion with 7 employees. He was employee number 4. The founder, Palmer Luckey, who was 19 years old when they gave him his first offer, sold it when he was 20 for $2.6 billion. That was his fourth employee. So interestingly, what they're now doing is Palmer has basically taken the money that he had. They fired him from Facebook. But he is now working on Department of Defense items. So for instance, he's looking for a better way to help us protect our country. Right now, I get a contract for $400 million. I get it from the Department of Defense. I hope I can create something that works with the $400 million bucks. That's how it works. He instead says, why don't I create something that works? Once it works, sell it to the Department of Defense because it will do the job I said it would when I sold it. He's changing the face of what defense is for our country. He's going subterranean defense as well. I don't want to freak you out, but there could be something right under here right now. Probably not. It's not a big risk. But these are the people who are there. These are the people you're sitting with. I think I told you one time I sat with Dr. Craig Ventnor. We're sitting at a table at breakfast, and I go, what do you do for the guy who decoded the human genome? Sitting at breakfast with him, eating eggs, going, I feel like an idiot. But what have you done lately, I said. So he gets this wry smile, and he goes, well, we're kind of stuck, Chris. Because we got inside the DNA, and there's like 256 switches. We don't know what they do. I said, you should work on that. so, I mean, again, you're sitting by these people. It's so funny, because like, what do you say to somebody whose whole life has been dedicated to this tiny thing we can't see? But it's pretty funny as we go through. This is another great statement, and think about these. Why am I bringing up the questions? These are things that you need to talk to your family about, that you need to have conversations within the car. What if, in the future, money's really not that important? There's a high chance in the future that money won't be that important. Because robots are doing most of the planting, growing. The sun is actually providing all the energy. What are humans needed for? Because that's a lot of what we do, is try to provide things for each other in a better way. But if robots and machines can generally do it, what's the role of humans in the future? When there's more robots than humans? What do we do?
Fix them.
What's that?
Fix them.
Fix them, yes. I like that, we fix them. But what if there's robots to fix robots? I mean, so here's the point. This is something we've been looking at here pretty heavily. The most important thing that we got out of Abundance 360 is we need to become better humans. A lot of the issues with communication are our own. So when you look at this, this does enable. So this is simply a tool to enable us to communicate. This gives us knowledge, and well, is it really knowledge? Do we know it's true? Can I verify it? Is it real? So if we can become better humans, though, about how to speak with, talk to, how to listen, more importantly, to others, how to be empathetic, which we lose when we've got Facebook and other things that are constantly drawing our attention. We're going to do a book study on how to win friends and influence people. Most importantly, I don't like the title as much as I like, it's really how to be a great human. It's one of the fundamental foundational books. If you'd like to join our book study, feel free, let the team know that. It's a fun, wonderful way to study a book that if you've read before, I guarantee reading it again, like myself, it's completely new. I'm seeing it with new eyes. Because this is a fundamental handbook to how we can operate with each other. More importantly, how you can teach the important people in your family by example to operate. So when you run into conflict, first thing we want to do is react and show them one of our fingers. Right? Potentially. Instead, let's respond in a kind way. And it's usually not this one, right? So as we go through, those are a couple of important things we saw. Let me give you this. So there's a gentleman as well. Anybody here ever heard of organ replacement? There's a gentleman who now can take one liver and deliver it to 75 to 150 patients because it regrows itself. More importantly, they're able to grow livers. In his same company, he is growing organs ectopically. Ectopically means it's on your skin. It's your own organ with your own system, and it doesn't reject. Unfortunately also, or fortunately, whichever you'd like to classify it as, they're able to take two men and take the zygotes from each and create a fetus ectopically now. It doesn't require two women, or a woman and a man. So they can grow a child, essentially without what most people here had to do to have children. So, why are these important? When I was young, I was supposed to be a preacher, a teacher, or a biomedical ethicist. And at the time, I'm like, biomedical ethicist, what is that? Right? We now see today, should I be able to choose these things? Should these things be something that my family's talking about? So, Dr. David Sinclair, probably one of the most interesting ones there. As he stood up, anybody read his book, Dr. David Sinclair, anybody know him? So January 16th, he produced something in the Journal of New England Medicine, which said that our epigenetics can be turned back to any age we'd like to, period. So he gets up on stage with Peter Diamandis. The first question Peter asks him is, so you believe there's no limit to human lifespan? He goes, none whatsoever. Confidently just says it. Why would that be? Because he took, for example, mice are very lucky because mice are cured of everything. They took a mouse with glaucoma, gray hair, and barely able to ambulate and move, and he turned its epigenetics back to a young mouse. Glaucoma went away, hair came back brown, and it moved vitally. Why is this important? Because our epigenetics remember what it's like to be 27. And he's figured out the way to actually go inside of our body and turn it back to that age. Now, I tell you that right before I ask you the question of, if you could live forever, would you? Because got a whole society there of people who are. Now, John, our friend John Tilstra, like myself as well, said, well, I'm already going to live forever because of my religion and my beliefs. That's the way I believe, right? Some don't. But how many people here would like to live forever? Anybody? Be kind of fun, right? How many people would like to live here longer if they could be healthy? See, that's the key right there. Most every hand goes. So if I could feel like I was 27 when I'm 90 and still climb and do this, there's a chance that in your life, if we can live 15 years, because I asked the question, well, that's great, but when? If we can live 15 years, we will have longevity escape velocity. That basically means for every year you live, you get another year. David Sinclair is proving this. So if you go out 15 years ago, and Chris, I'm 80 years old, I'm 95. Well, live to 95. You'd be surprised at what's going to happen between now and then. And to live vital at 95 and see your great-great-grandchildren, then the question is, well, what about my great-great-great-great-grandchildren? Do I want to see them? Well, maybe. They'd love to see, as I go through it, Grandpa Dave, he's awesome. Yeah, you should see him. He's 176. Man, he looks like he's 24. But think about the perspective. Now, let me ask a better question. If you had an extra 30 plus healthy years in the prime of your life from now, what would you do with it? Let me phrase it again. What will you do with it? It is a strong possibility that somebody in your family will have this as an option. Would you help people with the perspective you have? What would you do? Would you go out and build log cabins? Would you go out and become a pro golfer? What would you do? These are worth having these conversations. Knowing that this exists is super important because I'm the one to tell you, you're the one to go, whatever, dude. And then next year when I bring it to you and it's real, like, oh, I guess you did say something about that. But the more important thing is by breaking the ice and you having these conversations now, if you could live forever, would you? Have that conversation with your kids. What does an estate plan look like if you live forever? Do you need it? You don't really have beneficiaries, do you? How would investing need to look if you could live forever? Fairly aggressive, right? So a couple of things that I wanted to go through. Another one too, this ectopic gentleman as well is now able to train your brain so that they can choose a different organ to see. So he actually has one of the animals seeing through its tongue. Your tongue can become an eye, a source of seeing. If you can grow a third arm. Anybody here want a third arm? Might be helpful, like pat yourself on the back, right? These are possible. Regrowing limbs. So what they're looking at is we have the same DNA as many mammals, and these things can regrow parts of their body. Why can't we? Actually, he's finding that we can. So these are the scientists that I've seen. Let me give you one more as well. One of the gentlemen said, with education, don't follow your passion. Follow what you're good at. I thought that was an interesting one. I hadn't heard that before. Follow what you're good at. Don't follow your passion. Have fun and turn that into a career. He goes, no, don't do that. Because you have a lot of fun, but you don't make any money at it. He said, do what you're good at. I thought that was an interesting change as well. This is one portion as well for longevity. 10% of your longevity is gene expressed. 10% of your longevity is gene expressed. The other 90% is your exosome. That's a big word. I don't know what it means. But exosome is your outside, your environment, what you put into your body. I will say this, food is medicine. It's disappointing to me. Because that cake, that chocolate cake you eat, man, that's good. Eating little red potatoes and all the vegetables and all instead and avoiding all starches and sugars and disappointing. But if you want to live long and healthy, these are a lot of things you can do. Food is pharmacy, F-A-R-M-A-C-Y. New word I made up. This is another one. Heart disease kills about 48% of people in America, right? There's a gentleman growing new hearts. They're growing them ectopically, so you'll be able to use one yourself. So you can use a heart that you've generated. Basically, we're seeing now that people are beginning to start organ stores where you can go in for your own self, and I've got, okay, my kidneys aren't doing well. Oh, here you go. Here's your own. These are the things that are actually happening now. We're seeing people doing them and creating them. Here's one thing I said. People ask, what's a good diet for everyone? Well, nothing is good for everyone. Nothing is good for everyone unless your name is everyone. Does this make sense? Yeah, think about that for a bit. I got the laugh table over here. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So let me give you one more that goes with this. So here's a woman who is a pioneer with light and sound. So have anybody heard of a glioblastoma? You guys know what it is? It's a brain cancer that's pretty much incurable, right? In a very short time, the diagnosis is not good. She has found a way through both light and sound to not only find and isolate the glioblastoma. The difference with glioblastoma is it's all over the brain and it hides behind all other sorts of cells. It doesn't find one spot and grow a tumor, which you could take out. She's able to find it with light and lasers, and with the light and lasers, actually explode it in and of itself. And with that process, she's vaccinating the rest of the brain from getting glioblastoma. So this is the incredible medical technology going on that she was actually there showing us as well. This is basically there's no upper life limit as well. And then Tony Robbins came up. He was there for about 3.5 hours. Let me give you the summary. The most important thing you want to teach your kids is to recognize patterns. Pattern recognition and pattern recognition early. It's extremely important and more important than ever. Number two, better utilize those patterns. The reason we're here is because we recognize that, oh look, it's cold out in the winter. Well, we better get inside. We better build some shelter. Recognizing patterns are as basic as we are, but recognizing them quicker is what Elon Musk does. And he's one of the top entrepreneurs in the world right now as well. The third one is to become a pattern creator. So as we go forward with humans, this is what humans need to do to compete, not compete, but work with AI. So it's kind of fun to have Tony Robbins there as well, because he gives you a completely different perspective on how we view things. Now let me stop for a moment. There's a whole bunch more that can go through. I can show you different pieces, but let's stop because I'm sure you've generated. Has anybody like, dude, stop. This is all good. Thank you. Yeah, there's one. What kind of question? Good, we over for dinner tonight. So there's so much more that goes with this. You'll see I'm holding back on a lot. But let me ask you, what kind of questions do you have? I didn't touch on a lot of different items. You've heard stuff in the past. We're talking about material sciences. There's massive. This time they concentrated on longevity and chat.gpt. That was it. Because of the radical transformation, the fifth technological revolution that they're providing. What kind of questions do you have? Any questions? Yeah, David.
I think you just said that artificial intelligence can reproduce a human being.
Correct.
Is that what you said?
So I didn't say it quite that way, but you've deduced it through what we're talking about. They've now found ways to ectopically take two cells from different males and actually create a child, create a fetus. Yep.
Where does the fetus go?
Fetus can be planted anywhere. It can be in an artificial uterus. It could be, it can be actually done outside in a lab. There's all sorts of places it could be, but this is the most important thing is to understand this is not just an idea. It is actually occurring.
Scary.
Yeah, scary. Yeah. Scary not to those who could never have a child. It's another way to a couple to say, wow, this is awesome. So here's the one thing as well. Who here thinks that they're more anxious about technology since I've been talking about it? So here's what I want to say. Don't look at chat.gpt, artificial intelligence, as the enemy. It's also the solution. We can ask it to help me be a better human. How can I help others? How can I get outside of my own beliefs, my own worries? And if it can give us better advice on how to do that, more importantly, then we have to make the decision to do it. Having the discussion with your family, I'm going to tell you this right now. You are the solution to the crisis that exists today. Less judging, more gratitude. We can continue down the lines with these things. You are the solution to the crisis today. The vehicle with which you could do it might include a computer, might include technology, might include, NVIDIA making a faster chip so we can do incredible things. But you've all got it well too, which is there should be some anxiety. There should be some thoughts about, oh my gosh, what if this gets in the wrong hands? My wife asked a question, how can I authenticate that Putin is actually saying he's pressing the button versus just somebody making a Putin sampling his voice, which they can do, and you're now believing that Putin is pushing the button and we better counteract? That's a question. A lot of great, smart people are working on it, but we need authentication about people as well. That's a great question. Yes, please, John.
So you said that we could live a lot more years, but we have to support ourselves. So how do you invest in any of this?
So somebody brought that back to the question, how do we invest to live 1,000 years? Invest well. Our system is typically built so that you don't use the nest egg you have. Be careful with that. So if you're going to live a very long time, if inflation drops, so if technology makes things less and less expensive, it may not be as expensive to live in the future. Money may not mean a whole lot, but we're going to play the game as if it still is going to. So we plan on you living much longer than you do. When you tell us how late you live or how long you're going to live, we're usually like, yeah, okay. And we'll put another 20 years on that. So as we're looking at this, unless you've specifically said, I want to drain this by age 80, we're planning on it living longer. So it's going to be much more of a portfolio that has investments that have a higher return to beat both inflation and provide income for however long it is. Yeah, it's a good question. There's a lot that goes with it for each one of you, but we're already planning for that. I've been doing this for years because of longevity conversations I've had. That's a great question. I saw another hand. Yes, please.
So if you have an AI account, can somebody track you, what you've been looking at, or could I track Chris, what he's been looking at?
Sure. Yeah, you could. So you could, but you can't, because I'm smart enough for you not to. What has Carol Wienheit's been up to? No. So the answer is sure. I mean, it's open AI, but here's the thing. It's secure. You can sign in. You've got the same security you have for others. It doesn't have dual authentication. Ask it questions. I'm going to say, live your life this way. Ask questions, do internet searches that you're okay with the rest of the world seeing. We're imperfect. You're going to search something or do something. But everybody's going to be able to see this at some point in time. Because quantum computers in our lifetime most likely will occur, and they're going to be able to decode most of the human ability to put in security. So the answer is yes. Yes. If you want to play with chat.gpt, maybe Peter will send out the address for it. You can go in, it's a free account, you get ChatGPT 3.5. And the trouble is you're going to run into capacity, so you got to try it several times because you run into capacity issues. They're allowing so many people to use it free. I pay $20 a month to get Chat 4.0. It's really much better in several different categories, but I can have it instantaneously. So it's now Microsoft made a big investment, so is Meta. Facebook has as well in chat in their own Bard. It's called. That's their large language model as well. So there's some great companies out there making huge investments that this is the next big thing. They're all worried that Google search is going to go away. It won't. But that's a really good question as well. There's so many angles that can go with this, that I just want to. I'll keep the answers succinct to what you're saying. So the security is still an issue, just like any internet search kind of is. So please.
So are you investing in all these new companies?
It's a good question. I've taken all my money out and I've planted it in the ground. I want rich soil, so I'm totally, the farmer gave me advice. I'm like, okay, that's a good idea. No, the key is, this is what's driving the growth of our portfolio. What our managers are doing are investing in these companies. If you're looking at most of the companies that have provided most of the growth this year, it's companies that enable AI, enable technology and growth. What I'd love to see is that companies that are enabling better humans are actually leading the market. That's not happening right yet. Right? Please, yeah, Ken.
All very interesting, but what good is it going to do us if we can't get control of our cities? And on a lower level, if those people are being destroyed that are living in this jungle, if you will, and we just see things on television with stolen cars moving around, crashing, totally beyond any kind of comprehension of normalcy.
Yeah.
And yet we're talking about stuff that we can't even imagine. We can't get under control of what's happening.
Good question. So I'm going to make two statements with this and fairly succinct. So the problem is that maybe there's lawlessness. Human nature is beginning to overtake things, right? Human nature is a flawed investment principle. It's a flaw. We all have some negatives to us. And if I was in a different environment, I might not be here today, right? So I've got some grace to some of that. But if you start looking at this as well, artificial intelligence can track. It can go into a burning building. It can police. It can do all the things we need to do if we all agree upon a better, a world that has laws that we all agree to, some moral code. But there's some people who don't have the same morals. So I'm going to take this stuff and I'm going to walk out of the store and not pay for it. In some cases, employees can't prevent that now. Apple stores, Marshall stores, my wife told me, the employees just have to let them walk out, steal stuff. Do not go to Marshall's and steal something. I'm just saying. But it's interesting. So how do we prove the moral code in there? So it's the same issues. I'm going to make a statement. If you go back over history and you go to Pericles, you go to Sophocles, you go back to the ancient Greeks. The one thing we can get better at with chat.gpt is asking better questions. You're going to get on there and go, what question should I ask it? I can ask it anything. Yeah, you're right. What do I ask it? I don't know. But now you can, hey, create a purple goat. I mean, there's one that's called DALL-E. It can create any picture of anything you like to in art. Create a purple goat sitting on top of a mountain with, 3 cigars, having a beer, and the environment is sunny. And do it in the style of Matisse. It'll create that picture. Artificial intelligence will now create art as well. So my statement is it can probably also attack the very things that are our vices today. It's just not being used quite there yet. So the solution is also the problem. You see what's going on here? It's creating problems, but it also is potentially the solution for that same problem. So we're trying to kind of dial, what is this really all about? Human nature is a problem. Good people do bad things. Bad people do bad things sometimes. Right? So how do we prevent that? I can't tell you. That's maybe more of a spiritual question. All right? Good questions, though. Yeah, please. Keith.
2 things. One, you had mentioned the glioblastoma.
Yes.
The average person lives about 18 months.
That's right.
Once they're diagnosed. I had the good fortune to meet a young boy at age 12 who had glioblastoma and was in St. Francis Hospital in Peoria, Illinois for surgery for that. He lived to age 57. The world's longest surviving person with glioblastoma, and he actually beat it. But he died from leukemia, which was caused by all the treatments through which he had gone.
Correct.
And I can go into some other things that are extremely moving and motivational. What he did, he created the Western North Carolina brain cancer survivors group, and he had people from all over the world as members of that. So he really accomplished a lot with his life. And I can tell you a lot of personal things about it, but phenomenal.
It's awesome.
The second thing is, we're all familiar with lithium batteries as used in cars and so forth. Lithium is a difficult and expensive mineral to mine. It's extremely expensive. The total cost of manufacturing a battery, including what are you going to do with it when it's dead.
Right.
The new technology made of common, easily manufactured materials that create a battery. And the battery has a nanotechnology liquid electrolyte. And if you have a battery, you can pour the electrolyte into the battery, fully charged electrolyte into the battery, in your car or your watch, and drive it. When it's pretty much depleted, you can pull it to a gas station and take the depleted electrolyte out, pump into recharged electrolyte, take off and go again. So just like your gas powered car, in a matter of a couple of minutes, you at the station, off you go. Then you can take that depleted fluid and recharge it. Or you can drive your car home at night and recharge it.
Yeah, absolutely. The technologies are incredible. And I think what you're saying is, here's the biggest thing. People chose electricity as a mass distribution model, right, for cars. But the better one was actually going to be fuel cells. Fuel cells never took off. Electricity did. Now we don't have enough to make batteries. We got different forms to make batteries. Here's the thing. Beautiful part about technology and artificial intelligence as well is it can suggest the ideas that actually may be the most beneficial breakthroughs. So a lot of this discovery has actually been discovered with artificial intelligence, saying some of the latest medical discoveries are happening with artificial intelligence predicting out of these 10,000 things, these 3 are the most likely to work. They'll go work on just those 3. Miracle, those 3 work. Just like you're talking with the batteries. So there's some incredible aspects of this technology we're going to be able to use. Now, I appreciate the technology. Thank you for sharing. I've got 4,000 others I can go through if you'd like, but your time is one of the most valuable pieces of your life, which I appreciate. So I'm going to end with this. What's most important about this for you is we pay attention to it. I go to this. I'm one of the few financial advisors. Most there are trying to sell other people's stuff. I want to listen to it. I want to view it. I want to see what's going on. To bring back to you questions we should be asking our family. What I don't want you to be is going through an intersection and you get T-boned by it. That's what technology can do. If you don't know anything about it, it's going to hit you and you will have no choice about it. It's just going to hit you. But if I give you this ahead of time and know this is coming, you can make choices. Your agency will be yours. not what somebody else decided with this chat.gpt that you're now using as your brain. Right? So we want to have some moral aspect, this, some ability for us to control this as well. This is a very important part of it. So all the technologies, the computers, the batteries, the chips, all that's great. But it all comes back to us being better humans and leading our families. Your children catch more than you teach them. I know my daughters, I tell them all sorts of stuff. They're like, whatever, but they see what I do. They see what you do. You are the patriarchs of many families. So give them that example of what they can do. Talk about this. Have these discussions. You are the solution to this. I think we can have a better society with less anxiety. Now, you'll never cure it, but you can help one person, and that's yourself. There's a big, big issue with leadership right now in America. Everybody agree with that? Leadership in America is really in trouble, right? And guess what the biggest leadership issue is? Self-leadership. Because it starts with us. All they're doing is they're doing stuff that maybe we would have done if we were in that position. You go, no, I never would have done that. Well, walk in their shoes and see maybe if you would have. So everybody, even many bad people, felt they were doing good things. I'm doing this for the right reason. I'm robbing stores and giving it to people. Well, it was Robin Hood, right? So looking at this as I come back, we can be the solution. Now, I'll continue to go out there. It's very easy for us to do this and really spend our time on it and reading all sorts of books and all, but really trying to put them back together in a very salient form is difficult because there's so many different variables. But we try to boil it down to what's important for you and your family and how it's going to affect you for your life, investing, and the quality of your life. More importantly, also for how you give to others. Giving is what you do of your time, energy, attention, resources at Habitat for Humanity. You guys all have incredible. If we can become better at that, chat.gpt, AI, they'll all be part of our lives, but they won't take over as we're all saying because we're prepared for it. We'll continue to do this and go through it if it's helpful to you. Let me ask a question. Is this helpful? The conversation is helpful, important, if you will? Good. We're going to continue to do this and bring it to you in probably this and other formats. But I wanted to step back from all the amazing technology we see. I come back, see flying cars, I got this. I mean, they're all there. Everything we've talked about from batteries to this, it's all there. But what is this all getting to? It's all getting to a society. It's all getting to our grandchildren. It's all getting to, do we want to know, our great-great-great-grandchildren. So let's take a look at some of those aspects of things as well. Most importantly, I appreciate you, your time. We do this because we love doing this for you. You have given us a wonderful opportunity to spend our lives doing this so you can go out and do something else. You trust us. Most importantly, you deserve it. You deserve us to spend our time on this. That team back there, this team over here, we go out and do these things to help better your life. And you have helped better ours by sharing what you have with us. So it's mutual. We love you guys like a family. You are a community to us as well. We think it's this important for us to continue to do it. So with that, I'm going to remain up here in case there's any questions. If they're really, really tough questions, please ask Ken, Zach, Mike, Ashley, the whole team, if you will. But if you want to come up and any praise, please come up to me because, no, I'm just kidding you. With that, I want to thank you all for being clients of ours. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time, energy, attention, and your questions. With that, till next time, I appreciate it.